Before we start, I've got a question for you. Do you like stories of epic fantasy with deep, character driven narratives? If so, then I'd like to direct you to the Seeker saga, written by yours truly. Set in a world of gods and monsters called Theral, the Seeker saga follows heroes across the ages as they fight to save their homes from the machinations of wicked forces. Book 1 follows a young man and his companions on their quest to save the sun god and restore daylight to the world. Book 2 follows a young woman with a mysterious past as she sets out to uncover the truth of her origins and the massacre of her tribe. Book 3 follows a newly appointed knight who finds herself torn between her morals and her duties as her country teeters on the brink of civil war. Finally, my upcoming 4th book follows a man set on revenge against those who left him to rot in prison, only to discover that their betrayal was all part of a much larger scheme. Despite the numbering, there's no hard reading order. With each book following a different protagonist in a different part of Theral, you can jump right in wherever you'd like. So, what are you waiting for? I'll put links in the description for you to browse at your leisure. Now, on with the video. Yang Xiao, the last member of Team Ruby, and one of the 4 main heroines of the show. Allegedly. Yeah, it's no secret that compared to the other 3, Yang kind of has the least overall relevance in the show's broader plot. In truth, it's easy to look back and say that of the main 4 girls, Yang was rather lacking in a clear direction for her character from the very beginning. Throughout the early volumes, Yang's motivation kind of flip-flops all over the place. In the Yellow trailer, her goal for even visiting Junior's bar in the first place is locating a mysterious woman who we later learn to be Raven Branlin, her own mother. Of course, she quickly abandons trying to gather any info in favor of picking a fight with the entire club. But the motivation is established, at least. Unfortunately, it gets practically no follow-up in Volume 1. This motivation is reinforced in Volume 2, however, when Yang tells Blake the story of how she went out into the woods late at night as a child in hopes of searching for her mom, who abandoned her at an early age. To no avail, obviously. So, okay, Yang's goal is to locate her missing mother. Pretty straightforward and simple. That means that Yang's reason for enrolling at Beacon is to help her in this regard, somehow, right? Maybe because Raven used to go there, or at the very least because Yang knows the search will be dangerous and wants to be properly trained for it. Well, no, not exactly. Toward the end of Volume 2, the girls all talk about their reasons for wanting to become huntresses. Yang confesses to not really having an end goal in this scene. She simply describes herself as a thrill seeker and wants to travel the world, fighting monsters and getting up to crazy adventures in the process. So, either Yang is lying, or she just totally gave up trying to find her mom all of a sudden. Either way, this feels really random when her motivation was already established beforehand. Then again, maybe not, considering that Yang always had the least solid direction in hindsight. As stated before, her presence and impact throughout Volume 1 is minuscule at best, as the show was more focused on introducing and developing other characters beyond the main 4. Hell, even going back to the Yellow trailer again, you can see the writing on the wall. Or hear it, rather. Ruby has always done a lot of its storytelling through its soundtrack, using character themes to establish the personalities and motivations of its roster. Ruby's trailer song, Red Like Roses, is our first allusion to the fact that her mother's death supposedly haunts her nightmares. Weiss's Mirror Mirror is a window into the loneliness and sorrow she feels growing up under the influence of her rich douchebag of a father. Blake's song, From Shadows, is admittedly less a song about her and more about the plight of the Faunus as a whole, but that's still meant to be a core part of Blake's character. As for Yang, her song, I Burn, is more about establishing just how much of an unstoppable badass she is, or at least believes herself to be. Of course, this song does fit with Yang's character. She's cocky, hot-headed, and somewhat disrespectful. There's been some debate about what fairy tale character exactly Yang is meant to be based on, with some claiming that she takes inspiration from an old Chinese novel called Return of the Condor Hero. The common consensus, though, is that she's supposed to be based on Goldilocks, which fits not only with her vibrant blonde hair, but also with the events of her trailer. She wanders into a bar owned by Junior, clearly inspired by the Junior bear from the story, and even fights a DJ wearing a big stuffed bear head. Yang is also shown fighting Ursa Grimm fairly often, so clearly she's got a history with bears. The references are fairly loose to be sure, but I think the illusion is meant to be Yang's attitude. An arrogant young woman who pays little heed to danger and does as she pleases. Goldilocks does, after all, casually stroll into someone else's home uninvited, eat their food, and sleep in their beds without a care. However, Yang's attitude quickly changes post Volume 3, when she gets her arm cut off and her ego put in check. Throughout Volume 4, Yang stays home, slowly coping with her trauma and adapting to now having only one arm. Now, I've heard a lot of debate over the years regarding how Ruby portrays Yang's PTSD, whether it does a good or bad job at it, or whether or not she gets over it too quickly. To be honest, I am not really knowledgeable enough on the subject to make any sort of educated comment, so I won't say anything in that regard. What I will say is that Yang certainly does start to regain a bit more of her prior characterization in Volume 5, or rather, the lead up to it. Before the volume itself aired, Rooster Teeth released a series of character shorts meant to showcase moments from the main girl's past. Not unlike the original trailers leading up to Volume 1. Yang's focuses on trying to teach Ruby hand-to-hand combat, a setup for Ruby's so-called arc in Volume 5, before having to fight more Ursas, of course. In this trailer, Yang gets a new song called Ignite, which is basically I Burn 2.0. It's another song about Yang proclaiming what a badass she is and how badly she's going to beat you down.
Usually I devastate, this I might annihilate. Any minute now you're gonna ruin me, yeah. Messing with my family means I soon learn history. The moments of your life are fleeting.
The only lyric here that's really worth discussing is the bit about messing with Yang's family, as Rooster Teeth really wants to try to bring Yang's attachment to her father and sister to the forefront going forward, particularly the latter. Indeed, Yang's goal in Volume 5 is to track down and reunite with Ruby, who has gone off on a dangerous mission to who knows where. Yang even gets another new song, Armed and Ready, which is all about her getting back on her feet so she can go and protect her family.
Feel like I'm finally unbroken. Feel like I'm back from the dead. My strength back in comfort is growing. Out of my way 'cause I'm
It's not a bad direction for her character, but like with many things in Volume 5, the concept falls completely flat in terms of execution. So, Yang's plan to find Ruby is to track down her mother, who has a semblance that lets her teleport to people that she has a bond with. Raven has bonds with a total of 3 people: Tai, Yang, and Crow. Yang is kind of banking on Crow being with Ruby, so a portal to him will indirectly lead to her. And let us not forget, Yang's original character motivation was to track down Raven to get answers. Why did Raven abandon her? Where did she go, and what has she been doing all these years? None of that really matters to Yang in Volume 5, though. She does get the answers, but she doesn't really seem particularly interested and seems almost forced to sit down for Raven's exposition. Like, they keep trying really hard to establish that family is important to Yang, that she wants to find and reconnect with her missing mother while also striving to protect her younger sister. Yang even got a song in Volume 1 titled Gold, no relation, that's supposed to be her comforting Ruby after Summer's supposed death. In spite of that, Yang's actions in the show wind up being wildly inconsistent with this characterization. Even as far back as Volume 1, we see Yang ditching Ruby in a new and unfamiliar environment to go hang out with a bunch of random NPCs. The show does a slightly better job establishing their sisterly bond in Volumes 2 and 3, But Volume 5 is really the peak of Yang showing any concern for her sister's well being, even at the expense of Raven basically being sidelined. Volume 6 is infamously where Yang's character starts to revolve more around her relationship with Blake. And look, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I don't hate Bumblebee as a concept. I think there's genuine chemistry and potential there for this ship to work. Unfortunately, it just really feels rushed and kind of forced as a romantic subplot. Particularly when they are literally forced to declare their love for each other in Volume 9 to escape from a magic storm. Let us not forget that this is the same volume in which Ruby is suffering from depression and PTSD, and Yang, her loving, supportive, and caring sister, does basically nothing to try to comfort her. So much for turning her life to gold, eh, Yang? At the end of the day, Yang really does just suffer from a lack of direction, more so than any of the other girls, I fear. She never gets to be much more than the group's hot-tempered brawler, and while the trauma of losing her arm was an interesting direction, mileage may vary on how well it pays off. Really, I think the aimlessness of her character could have been used to the writer's advantage, looking back on it. Leaning a bit more into the Goldilocks parallels, I feel like you could have done something with making Yang a bit uncertain about who she wants to be or what she wants to do with her life. She grew up in a house in the woods, having never really known her original mother. She's hot-headed and combative, tearing up an entire club just because security threatened her when she started making a scene. I feel like there could have been something about Yang not really fitting in anywhere she goes, and her arc could have had something to do with finding the path that's just right for her. Does she want to be a free-spirited adventurer? A guardian of the innocent? A protective older sister? Hell, there might have even been something in Yang finding out that her mom was a villain and trying to figure out her feelings regarding that revelation. But what do you all think? How do you feel about Yang's characterization, and what direction would you have taken her arc given the chance? Leave your thoughts and comments down below, and until next time, stay bright.